Another call to order.
Alrighty. Just get live on YouTube, I'll let you know. Okay, you're good.
Big spot for you, Corey. I sit here, so you'll be on it goes from over to Catherine. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Tonight, I'm going to chair the meeting since Irv is remote. A couple of full room, at least planning board. So a couple of, I guess I'll start with first order of business, which is letting our new member and our new CEO introduce themselves to the rest of the board. Thank you, Corey. Thanks for joining us. Just a couple of reminders. This is a hybrid meeting, so this is the first time we've tried this. This is also the first time we've been together as a group for a half. So to see everybody and really see everybody, except you, Irv.
That's right.
Since we've got quite an agenda tonight, I am going to try to run with some order. So please, I'll recognize people to speak. Remember, there's a public comments session right after the new business item on the agenda. So roll call, we've got all our board members here, Irv, hopefully, and per our town policy and main statute, since attending remotely, we will do all our votes as a roll call vote. So Anna, if you could just yeah, the meeting's called to order at 6 o'clock, right on time. Do we have minutes of the June meeting? I have them. I think I have them offline. Does anybody have comments to the minutes?
I did send them, but unfortunately, it's probably
Yeah, that's been the night.
yeah.
Okay. Herb, any comments to the minutes from?
No, I have no comments.
So with that, I guess I'd like to take a motion to approve the minutes. Somebody else?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Herb, so moved, and Catherine second. We'll go ahead and vote. Let's go around the room. Catherine?
Aye.
Gabe? Aye. Karen?
Sustain.
Sustain. And Ryan is a yes. Herb?
Yes.
All right. And next item on the agenda is the CEO's report. Thank you, Corey, for providing a summary of your business over the last while. It goes back to plumbing. Is it supposed to be comprehensive of the year or just like the last couple of months?
It's just what I could find when I started. That was in the desk. And then July and August for me.
Got it. Is there anything with respect to new permits that you'd like to report to the board? Is there any enforcement action you'd like to bring forward? board, does the board have any questions for the CEO?
I don't have any questions, just say welcome. And same thing for Carney as well. How do you say your name, ma'am?
What's that?
I just wanted to ask the lady how she pronounced her first name.
Oh, Kearney.
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 Why?
Pleased to meet you. See you.
Nice.
Welcome.
Heard the Diego, right?
Nagel.
Nagel?
Nagel like bagel.
Nagel, like that. Kearney. And Gabe, you had a question for it?
Yeah, just make.
All right.
To me, what is confusing is the numbering. How can you have several permits with the same?
Because one's plumbing, one's building, so they separate it.
Okay.
Issued 68 building permits, 66 building permits. Here's the direction,
Um,
more or less.
it's rough, yeah, because it's swapped hands so many times. I just didn't want to renumber.
We've been- This is our third CEO this calendar year, so hope you stick with us. Yeah, I don't have any questions. CEO's report. So with that, I'm gonna move on to new business. To do so, I'd like to recognize Jim Hendricks with his on the rock drink. I understand, this is not actually an application, you haven't signed it yet, so this is like. You have the signed one? Oh, good. I want to talk about that. Well, I don't know that. You would typically take the application, note that he's here to tell us about it, so.
Right.
The complete application 3 days before.
Oh, so when an email conversation, if I had known that.
For purposes, I don't think it matters because I'm gonna let you tell us about your project this month. I don't think we're gonna go through performance standards review, and the expectation is that we're gonna do it next month, so just. Get us that.
Yeah,
before
that
that's
was my
signed.
understanding, but won't be as well.
So it won't stop the purpose of today. So Jim, you want to just go ahead and brief us on your application, then I'll open it up to the board.
Sure. So, there's the upstairs space, the tenants. The downstairs space, which was kind of semi-finished before my father had put up the room. The back there, we've done a little bit work to make it a little bit nicer, so. But what we'd like to do early this year, I had some conversations with the about how to obtain our liquor license. We'd like to be a small catering business to do events. In any space, and what I was briefed from them, it could be in any home space, it could be a garage, it could be a basement, as long as you satisfy the requirements. Their major requirements are three basin, hand washing station, bathroom, mops, basically shielded lights, which means covered LEDs will cover that. Walls can be washed. Yeah, floor will be sealed. Duration. Still does not require unless you're gonna cook. That's another requirement to license through the Department of Health. And there's some other small requirements like, water has to be centered. Here is space. will get licensed and inspected by inspector. Make an application, for a class 1 license. As far as the space itself, actually a separate space from even the basement space. You know, we saw with a permanent wall with a lockable door, so it separates it from the resident for the evening, just that little living room space. It's in the basement. It's already separate from the residence and have its own separate entrance. Small, the private traffic. I would say it was really neat, basically. First location is like a formality for the business, really. Any sort of food would be anything, mostly the business would be geared toward providing bartending. There won't be a pro sign, there won't be any sort of public traffic to and from the property. They won't be the owners of the business, which would be us for here. The only times we would be there is to either pick up or drop off stuff on days of events, because it would serve mostly as support base.
All right, open it up to the board for questions. Irv, anything? Could you hear?
Number of employees, Jim,
Or
4 employees. Make sure that's on your performance standard. Hours of operation, I didn't quite hear that either.
so the hours of operation there will only be on days when we have events. So there won't be day-to-day open hours. It would only be on the day we have an event, we would probably be there for within an hour or two, pick up stuff, leave, and that would be it. Maybe drop off things.
Okay. Any extra lighting you're gonna put in there?
We just have to install for the lighting for the inside. We just install covered LEDs.
Okay,
The health inspector said these need to be shielded, which means a cover, and she said LED lights with the cover suffice for the light. Really, the idea with the lights is that just so they don't shatter. So,
any additional septic needed?
no, but the CEO would have to ensure, and believe the only requirements for the septic would be to ensure that the well and septic are amount of space apart. I think it's in the health inspector.
And proximity to neighbors?
The business.
Yes.
So it's a 4-acre plot. I am the nearest neighbor, so it'll be next to my property. That other, it is approximately 100 to 200 feet from the property line of the vacant lot next door that's owned by Butch Taylor. And then the next
Okay.
neighbor to that would be my other sister, who's going to be the business owner. And then otherwise it'd be the properties across the street.
Okay. They are not family over there, are they? Are they?
No, the gentleman, Don, actually, his house is for sale. Yes, he had some health issues. And
Okay.
his daughter and son are currently trying to sell the home. He is back in New Jersey. And the other neighbor across the street is, I don't know Paul's last name, I just call him Paul the Barber.
Okay.
Question?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I have no more.
Sorry, Catherine.
I have a question, I don't know the answer to that. It's about the boiler room. It seems it's going to be enclosed in the section of the business. What if the tenant above has a need to access it?
So the tenants above don't have access to the basement at all. We addressed it.
But was somebody nearby ready to?
Yeah, but property manager live next door,
Okay.
or our property. They live within about 2 acres.
And then, so this little kitchen would, I know you're not going to do extensive cooking of that
Correct.
sort, but still you're going to prepare things. And you're going to drive them to the barn or?
Yeah.
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 And
And then, again, like initially this business would solely start with working at our venue. Yes, start a business.
So they require more cooking elements at the barn to keep things warm or whatever.
So yes, so at the barn, we will have what's called a warming kitchen. And again, we will be held to, even though we're not going to license that kitchen as a cooking kitchen. We still have a couple by the fire marshal rule, like fire suppression, things like that. In order to keep it warm, but there won't be any actual cooking up there. There'll only be like preparation and warming it.
So now we're just looking at that cooking catering side, not the alcohol serving side.
Yeah, and that part would be, like I said, that gets licensed by, we would, like, again, obviously, because some do the town, mostly we have to go through the state first. Even in that process, they have to become what they call qualified caterer, which is basically what would be attempted to do. And part of that, the term commercial kitchen is kind of a very loose term because they don't call it a catering kitchen. Some people call it a warming kitchen. Some people, it's just when you think commercial kitchen, most people think restaurant kitchen, but this is not that type of kitchen. We're only really held to the, I said, with those basic requirements. The most important ones that I was given were the 3-bay sink, hand washing sink, the mop sink, and certain obviously have for like
I'd like the CEO to comment on, I know from the kitchen inspector's perspective, there may not be a need other than separating the well and the septic, but I'm not sure that's the case.
Yeah,
Subsurface water quality. Also, can you comment on whether or not this additional use for residential property septic probably going to come down to flows and all of that.
Yeah.
But beef is there probably need to be a new HHE 200.
how many tenants are upstairs?
just 1,000 gallon tank.
And how many bedrooms upstairs?
I have on file is only good for a 2-bedroom house.
Can you orient me to 305 while he's doing this really quickly? Where is that in relation to the wedding bar?
To the road, to our son.
Wait,
Yep.
Yep. So can you expound on that a little bit, Corey? When was that done? And
This was done in '04 by Robert File Jr. It was designed for a 2-bedroom house, 180 gallons per day. Then I did print off the flow chart from the state of. But it's gonna come down. We'll have to look closer, or I'll have to look closer at it, and so it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a site evaluator.
and Jim, I guess if there's 3 bedrooms and you're only approved, you got 2-bedroom septic and you're adding more use, that concerns me.
Yeah.
Don't think it's really Corey's job to design your septic, so maybe work with, I know you use Missouri or something, if you could give us as part of your application, probably would be good.
Sure.
Or
Just quick question. How old is the structure?
2004.
I didn't,
bedrooms up, 1 bedroom down, is that what it is? I see there's a bedroom on the basement diagram here.
I didn't catch it. How old was the structure?
04.
2004.
Oh, 4, okay. Wiring coming in, 100 amp or 200 amp?
Good question.
And how old is the wiring? You have people living there, so we want to make sure.
It was all brand new construction in 2004.
Okay,
I would assume it's a 200 amp service, but I don't know for sure. I'd have to look.
good wiring, okay. That's all I had. Since there are people living there, I wanted to check on that.
Sure. Yes.
Where's this barn?
To be built. Still in the construction phase.
Oh. Oh. I didn't see anything from bathrooms down on the site where the wedding barn is gonna be.
Yep, no, they're bathrooms. Yeah, definitely.
Can we get a picture of the wedding barn, your plans?
We approved that application.
Yeah, I think I got a call to order here. We've already approved that application. That's not the application we're talking about.
For the barn?
Yes.
I'll have.
Different property, different business.
Yeah, it will have. So I have a septic been approved for up to 200 people.
I totally get you everything for that. I got it all,
Okay.
all in my. All collated. There's a pretty big package. And then Ray has the official file. Sure.
Yeah.
Is it related? So is there any other questions from the board?
I'd like to see maybe at the next meeting, a plot plan with the, or even on the grid with the application, as it pertains to other butters, the road, just kind of a general position of the building,
Sure.
Yes.
something that we can know exactly what we're looking at, where it is a little bit better. But other than that, I'm kind of okay on.
And I want to clarify lighting. You talked about LED lighting. That's inside, no additional exterior lighting that you're planning for the business?
Was up. You know, it's not real big lights there on.
I did find these as well, not till it was too late. If you think I could give it out to them. So,
It's interesting. I've not seen. Yeah, so it's kind of prompts them on all of our
Yeah.
performance standards.
yeah, it even has that in there. It's attached to the land use. For the ordinance, not the.
Why you could copy of that? It's
That's the same thing that
a bullet list of things like, I don't know. Like pot, Portero, and
was that on the I didn't see that.
Under the ordinance. Remember, it's on our website. It was at the end by the fee schedule.
I think that's specifically for things that need to come to the planning board, helps us do our review.
One last question. I mean, the space you're designing, is it big enough to store the food that you're going to prepare? I mean, it seems pretty small.
So really, like I said, any food we're going to store there is probably going to be dry storage. Like, the basis of the business is not to be a food caterer. Every service and basically provide service and alcohol sales and service for that. The amount of stores that will be there probably won't be a ton. It'd be more like small supplies, like things that we might need for today. But the majority will be selling the and not stored there.
So just so I'm clear, the
Yes.
current permit application is really just for the catering. That's the order you have to do it for the
Yes.
state. But you're gonna come back to us with another application then for I don't know how that works. Herb, can I lean on your experience? Because there's.
They want to do an additional upgrade on their application. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm just not clear if this application is for catering or for catering and alcohol or.
So
That would,
any caterer who basically gets their license from the state can provide alcohol.
Okay.
So
that's correct. I don't think we regulate alcohol licenses in town of South Thomaston.
towns actually regulate that. It was regulated by first the Department of Health and Human Services regulates part of it, and then once that we have a license from them, then you may go before the other part for alcohol, and then they would provide a license.
I'm going to restate my understanding now, which is that this application to us, as a planning, town planning board, is for the entire scope of the business and use. You have to do multiple steps with the state.
First step. But this part, the first step, we can't go on to the next.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask the code enforcement officer to make sure, you know, that there's no issues as far as town ordinance or town rules. I don't believe there is. But at the next meeting for alcohol service. And the food preparation, anything that we may not consider tonight. So if we could review that for us and let us know at the next meeting, that would be great.
All over the business. There'll be people coming up to the back door and asking to buy beer. Like there'll be no sales done. It only purely like basically our business home base. All of our sales and service will be offsite.
Yeah. At a kitchen, or sorry, it's not a restaurant or bar.
Not gonna be a restaurant, not gonna be a bar. We're not gonna have people coming back and forth. I mean, people have access to that. All of our business will be done at use. Just to be clear, plot plan, talk to a septic for evaluation of that.
And I think we need an opinion from a licensed evaluator on what's required for this use. In the
Confirm the electrical.
Electrical, if you could,
Photos would be great.
electrical photos, is that okay, Jim?
Sure.
And I think at least the service, size of your service is what your question was.
One more thing, I have another subject. Since we've had our March bylaws, we have notified the abutters and some neighbors for the other projects. If I don't know how the board feels about that. We're not required to do that, but if that's something you want to discuss, might be a good chance right now.
Yeah, I was actually going to suggest modifying the agenda and talking a little bit about that, Irv.
Okay.
Why don't I could make a motion to do that now. I'd like to make a motion, whether it's now or later, to modify the agenda and talk to the board a little bit about initiating a work stream on notice, which would probably be an amendment to our newly adopted bylaws, some more details around how, not just, I guess, the procedure behind notice more than just what it says now, which is it'll happen if there's a motion, right? So I'm going to move that we modify the agenda. We'll take it. I'd like to do that after public comment. Is there a second to modify the agenda? Catherine? I'm going to take a vote. So Catherine?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye. Ryan, aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Irv
Yes, Guy.
passes unanimously. So you can reflect that in the record, Anna, that we'll have discussion of notice, kind of generally, both for new permits in general and how we would escalate to a public hearing, I think. So going back, is there any more questions for Mr. Hendricks?
What do you estimate the timeline to be to complete all your plan?
So as once we get, if we get approval from here, we should be along within a month. But the other process, I don't take some time to obtain license. I'm not sure. I think that process can take up to at least 3 months.
To be clear, 2 to 3 months for the renovation, but less clear on your state permitting.
I would say for the renovation would probably be within a month to 2 months at most. So that's not. Get the permitting part, I do not know how long. I think it depends upon how fast the wheels of those departments will work. So it's a multiple step process. We would first get licensed from Department of Health, would then be inspected by the health inspector. And then once if we pass that, with flying colors, then we would have to apply then. They would give us a license, then once we get that license, we would obtain.
I do have one more question,
Sure.
which and maybe you've talked to him since you've been in contact, perhaps on your other project, but are there any requirements for fire safety, like firewall or sprinklers or any of that? Does this come under the, you have to get this permit at the state fire marshal?
For this?
Yeah, because there's no public in there.
Correct. It'd be the same as like any home caterer who decides they want to cook out of the kitchen. As long as the difference being has to be separated from that residence stuff.
My request to you, Corey, is just think about that. If you can do a little research and make sure that we don't have a building code here. I don't want to make one or ad hoc one, but I want to make sure that we understand as a board what our role is in fire safety for this sort of application.
Okay. Yeah, I think, there are like pretty clear decision points like out online. The first thing, I think that because of the size of this and the lack of public accommodation, you're probably okay, but I agree that we want Corey to confirm.
At least for sprinklers, it's 300 people. That's what I've been told.
That's
My only thought would be just because of the tenants upstairs,
yeah,
but I'll check into it and see what I can.
If you find something, can you please share it with Mr. Hendricks ahead of the next meeting?
Yep.
So we can, I guess, address it if necessary.
When would be the next meeting?
It's a good question. Anna, do you know this? I can look it up.
The
It's always the third Thursday,
It is September 16th.
9/16, yeah. All right. Any more questions from the board? If not, I'm going to close this item. Irv, I see you shaking your head, so now we're good. Yeah.
We're good. I'm good. I no questions.
And let's move on to our next item, Georges River Land Trust parking lot application, Hopkins Drive Trailhead. So if you want to stand up, state your name and your affiliation.
So my name is Matt Bonner. I'm the Trails and Public Access Manager at Georges River Land Trust. Really when I happened to have a local cleanup a while ago, and poor Corey's had his phone ringing off the hook for the last couple of weeks. So as some of you guys might know, Georges River Land Trust has trails and nature preserves in the area. And last year we acquired a parcel from a cousin off West. So our hope is to turn that into a nature preserve. And so I think what I've presented in front of you now are 3 permits, one for parking lot to support visitors, and 2 more each for one for bridging, a set for a sitting area, if I'm not mistaken. And those will be some of the changes. Those are the only changes we were prepared to present to you guys at the moment. But our aim is to make sort of public park location. It's a pretty good number of citizens in this town. We know that the town doesn't have any other sort of trails, park other than the gate, the one across from the gate. We're happy to fill that role with one of our properties. It's a really good area. It's got some views of the West Gate sort of outlet there. It's got some important salt marshes, a really very sort of natural character to it. It's a real great area. And so it's our hope to give it a bit of a overhaul and some kiosks and hiking trails and the whole shebang. I figured I'd come for you guys to get our approval to begin with a parking lot, which would be a nice first step. So easier access, showing folks while we work on the other.
Okay, so just to recap the specific improvements you want to make to the lot, there's 3 kiosks.
So at the trailhead, there's gonna be 3 kiosks.
Yes.
I believe I provided a little map to Corey. We're gonna have a few more, kiosks added at each of 5 sites, which we may or may not require permits for as well. I think Corey's gonna be nice enough to check on that for me. Because our kiosks are designed where they're a single post, I think technically the law states you don't need a permit for a post within the shoreline zoning line. Now, I think the law means for a fence, but if it's still a post, then we might be able to slip in there, but that's up to Corey to decide, of course. Other than that, we have a few other improvements in mind, none of which I have, I've done enough research for enough preparation to present you guys with the actual permit today. So I figured we'd keep it simple and hopefully try to get a parking lot approved and then a few other things as well.
So the first permit application is for a 10-car gravel parking lot, 25 by 80,
Yes,
abutting existing fire road.
yes,
And the second permit you're asking us to consider is for a low-impact bog bridge that crosses from wetlands to get across the seasonal wetlands, keep feet clean and
Yes.
minimize impact to the land.
Yep.
And that will be 3 feet wide by about 60 feet total length.
in 2 parts. One 10-foot stream and 50 feet. To get out of what isn't really a wetland, but it's kind of wet. I figured better not let people try off.
And then the third permit is for 2 6-foot picnic tables made out of Trex material, so that plastic decking material. As well as a couple of Adirondack chairs near the shore.
Yes. So that's, I guess, another question for debate, whether chairs are considered structure. We've had some issues in the past trying to get benches and things near bodies of water, so I figured we'd be safer to just write a permit for it.
Right thing.
Are they going to be secured? No.
Yes, we think so. I'm thinking, secure rebar pipe in a chain, just so, as one of our board members put it, the hooligans coming off there will rethink, stealing the chair that night and maybe come back again with it, so.
All the trails on this property are pretty much pre-existing. Are you improving, making more?
Though the 80 are, we have cut one new, what would be classified as a meandering path, 3-foot wide trail. That doesn't, I was pretty certain it's within all legal restrictions. But the majority are old logging roads that have existed on the property for a while.
So principal question for you is you're showing access nipping the edge of your abutter's property line on one diagram, the other diagram is less clear. Can you tell me about whether or not visitors can park out another person's property? If so, how you're allowed to do that?
So they do cross the property, and it does sort of cross at that corner there. But we have, well, rather, we own the road and they have a right of way across it. Or I assume it's a mutual right of way. Our legal access into the parking lot does, into that sort of fire lane there, allows for others as well, according to the public would be accessing it, but there's no restrictions on the.
Who owns that land and are you in contact with them?
Yes, that is Perkins and Monahan are the 2 names registered there. And so we've been in frequent contact with them. We actually bumped in with April Perkins the other day, as well as about a month ago, we sent out letters to both to them, Kevin Thomaston on that other parcel whose shares access on Hopkins side, as well as all of the other landowners on Tidal Creek Road, which our property, just sort of to let them know that an agent reserve will be there.
The letter and the people that were notified?
So
Kathy.
Yes, question. Are you going to do the bike ride? Bike ride?
No, that's not in the current plan.
Why not?
Well, a bike rack, you mean? Oh, people support their bikes. Oh, that's a good idea, if they bike there.
The town people could easily bike instead of drive there.
I'm considering it now. That's a good idea.
Is that the sort of thing that you're authorized to do? And make us consider that in your application?
Put it at the parking lot. I don't think there'd be any restriction. I don't think it would fall under the definition of structure. Most of the definition pertains to the support of the containment for holding. So like, yeah. And it'd be outside of any shoreline zoning and sort of wetland distance requirements.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
And it's almost to the board, it's a solid question. Is this applications for that to be used? Or is this, are these applications all piecemeal? But sort of security of that this property is being used differently.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, let me put something up quick. I want to consult. I guess the question is it used public access in a park right now? Maybe.
Open to, though we don't officially, though we haven't officially had anything there to support that. We kept the trails clear and someone started ATVing on it, so we closed that down.
That's my biggest concern, notwithstanding your formality of your question, is traffic on the road, adequate supported surface, all that. I don't put in there. Also, do others. Is that a public road or a private road?
Private road, us and the two Georgia River Land Trust and the two neighbors that use Hopkins Drive share costs for it. I don't think we've had any maintenance done since acquiring the property, so we have to look at the, so I imagine the public use, we'd be taking on the majority of that cost. The road now is a pretty standard, what is it, 12 feet wide? I think it's about a 20-foot wide dirt road that could use some improvement. It's got potholes. It's still in pretty good shape as far as dirt roads go. We got a quote for its improvement at $3,000 to get it up to fancy gravel road quality. That's something we have to work out with the neighbors of us likely sharing the brunt of the cost.
Any of the neighbors since you sent them letters?
No, not from the letters. People Perkins was very enthusiastic that we were having an acre there. And in regards to the road and modifications, we selected the parking lot location after toying with the idea of having it closer to Westbrook Street. We figured people coming off and seeing the sign right there would be great for visitors. But upon touring the area, there weren't technically wetlands, but they were low and wet and boggy. And the neighboring properties were very close. And so rather than put it closer to Westbrook, we would minimize furthers.
The sign?
On the Westbrook Street.
Don't see that. Okay.
Look on the sign.
I think a sign could potentially be another application. For you.
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah, it is. have?
I believe the sign would just come under our own sign ordinance rules.
Yes, it's the, so you,
Yeah. Text here is permitted, so I think as long as I follow the law. to make it, you know,
I think you have to apply the CEO. Any more discussion questions?
I have a little bit. On the third permit with the picnic tables and chairs, I'm not sure why that's required. I don't think that's
It might
such
not,
structure.
in the past, and some years ago at our Riverview Hayfields Preserve off 131, I think we were denied putting in a stone bench. I wasn't here for it, but I think that's what it was. Due to shoreline zoning laws. It was considered a structure, I believe. And so because of that, I figured submitting a
I
permit
see.
case.
It's probably putting a stone bench, but you're just setting these upon the ground, right?
Yes.
So,
To me, that's no different than somebody with a home that puts a chair by the water. I don't think we really need to act on that permit. I may be wrong, but it's not really a structure. I mean, I think you're allowed 10 by 10 on the shore as well with a regular building permit. So I'm not, Corey can check that, make sure, but I think that's kind of the standard I don't have the shoreline zoning regulations with me, but I seem to recall that.
so noted. We've got this issue of notice that we'll talk about more later, but right of way involved. I think that's the principle. In fact, it's private. Feel that there should be some sort of notice, like formally that we have. I mean, maybe what you have satisfies it. Procedures that we work on it, but how does the rest of the board feel considering and voting on these today versus
The bridge, does that need a DEP permit by rule or anything for that?
The bog bridge, I think.
The bog bridge.
Yeah, I think you're right. Any crossing.
Right.
It depends if it's a stream meets the definition of a stream. So stream, which is like 7 tests and you have to meet 3 of them. I've just done this recently. And the answer would be yes, but I don't know if it's a stream or not, or just
60% sure it's a stream. I figured we were ready to take it to the DEP. I think I just wanted to do it for a stream.
The only thing that I'm prepared to vote on tonight, I'd like to make a motion to strike the third permit with the picnic tables and the chairs. I really don't think that's a requirement for the planning board. I can't think of any reason why we would need to have that.
Yeah.
Then the other two, I think we should find out about the walkway. And the land ownership is all owned by the Georges River Land Trust, the whole property.
Yes.
And that's a nonprofit.
Yep. 501c3.
513, okay.
We have a second reverse motion. Okay, seconded. Discussion. Anybody else? Guess my question is, I know you're just being conservative in your new job. Corey, was there any particular reason why you asked him or the planning board?
Here, I believe. Recreation, non-commercial in our ordinance is all planning board for all zones.
That's the use question.
Change of use is all through me for all zones.
Can I see that really quick? Or think. I guess it doesn't say, change of use, or approving a new use, right? Land doesn't have a use until it's been assigned one. Assigned use, so
Yeah.
I actually do think that we should change of use. It doesn't mean we couldn't potentially act on structures here, but I feel like I think I'm in agreement with Gabe and keeping in mind, it just errs on the side of caution, I guess.
Well, in that case, I can withdraw my motion on as far as the picnic table and stuff goes. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Couldn't
we're
quite hear
talking about the fact there may need to be another permit that, because right now we've got 3 permits. The one's check new building or structure. Another one's new building or structure, and the other one's other picnic tables and chairs. I actually agree with you, Irv. I don't think that we need to do that if there's no disturbance of the ground, no foundations, no.
It's not a permanent structure. It can be moved.
But I do think we need to consider an application that would be check change of use, and then it would be in the recreation, what is it called?
Non-commercial.
Okay.
Recreation, non-commercial. I hate to. But.
It was previously harvested for timber. So I guess that.
And timbering's allowed without an application. Of course. What I think I'd like to recommend that we do is ask you to come back, make that permit application, and come back next month. We're going to vote on all of these. That can happen pretty quickly. Is there any, I want to open, is there any discussion on notice? Do we need, we can talk about it later, but do we think there's any need for a butter notice or? Well, you've already done a butter notice and you can show proof of that and put that in your change of use application. But then we consider it. Because I think it's being fine to go that way. Especially because it's a common road, like I said, and a common right of way, it's impact. Only. Is that okay? Is the rest of the board okay with asking Matt here to come back next month? I hate to make you, where are you coming from, Matt?
Me personally.
As a
Oh, I live
longer-
up in Thomaston, but
Okay, good. So it's not terrible
yeah,
call to get here.
oh yeah, I'm coming down myself, no problem. Is not to push my stand or anything, but would it be possible to get the clearance for maybe the parking lot and that in the good faith that I'll get that land use application, or would that be putting the car?
Get the cart before the horse because on your parking lot until you change the use. Yeah, the discussion, I mean, I hate to, because it's summer and we all want to get this, I mean, I have an interest in going and using the park too. I don't really want to obstruct.
Tractor lined up to do the work. Yeah, and
Right, what do you think, Catherine? I'll speak.
I mean, how long we have to review it? There are a lot of, I agree, things have to be done in order and have to be, not by sequence.
I think it's best for you and for us and town. we do it in the right order. That way, if something does arise. Or do you have anything to say on that?
Well, I think maybe the simplest thing tonight would be to table this application until September 16th. And we get the questions answered and get the right applications and the right land use and properly. So I'd like to make a motion to table this application until September 16th meeting.
Second that motion.
That'll give me time to get.
Annie, you got that? Okay, so any discussion? Okay.
Aye.
And is I. Irv?
Aye.
Thank you, Matt, sorry to bring you back next month, but, and by the way, thank you for and your organization for doing this right now. Yeah, why don't we give him a copy of that? So when we do the application review, there will be a performance standards review, and we just go through checklists, and we're gonna give you that, so you can get some, facilitate that process.
Right.
All right, with that, public comment. Anybody want to recognize the public comment?
Mr. Carker's on. I don't know if you get there.
Oh, and who else is on attending?
Lee Carker's is
Recognize
got his hand
Mrs.
up.
Hilton at the back of the room first, but then we'll go
Okay.
to remote attendance. So Mrs. Hilton, please.
Regarding the building, it wasn't clear whether it's an addition or a renovation.
It is a renovation within the existing building footprint.
What my concern is increased activity at the end of the road and the dust, because right now we're not even able to open our like the back doors on the back side of the house. If there's truck or increased activity there due to the dust.
For the catering application.
I'm assuming there's going to be increased traffic in that area.
Yeah, that was one of the requests is to give a plot plan, but maybe you can just answer.
The only increased traffic will be us, but there will be, the top of the road needs to be paved once completed. The road's not complete. At least the Saltwater Coast Road is not complete yet. It's basically gravel at this point. It will be or more so large gravel rock. And mostly we wanted to wait until the barn crane comes through, because it's a very large piece of equipment. And all is completed, the first we are required by the DOT to pave the first 18 feet at the top. Just to ensure that there won't be an increase in traffic.
The fire chief review the access then.
Related to the current application or the wedding barn?
Well, this is the same entrance.
We have, no, there are 3 entrances to that property. There'll be a separate entrance to the basement itself, even if the kitchen is approved, we'll have one separate entrance there.
I want to actually weigh in. On the wedding barn, I've been in contact with Brian. Steve Calderwood about what interact with you guys. I know he's been out to the property or the wedding barn.
Yes.
I assume that in one of our conditions was to fill.
So Brian had requirements. He said our road easily met, we tested our road by having 2 dump trucks on the side. He said we'll easily be able to, any of his pieces of equipment will be able to drive side by side and go through. He said, piece of equipment can't turn around, but he said that's not an issue because they can park in the parking lot. The issue I may come with you at some point And we were talking about fire ponds, just because former John Paulson pond is no longer being used because it was never maintained. He said he can't use it. So he made a suggestion that would be, might be a good addition to the property. Basically, the neighbors for a fire pond. That wasn't any requirement. That was the suggestion. We thought it might be a good idea.
On your lot.
Correct.
And then is there a way to pond it? Like, is there a stream?
I'm sure we would have to pay to fill it, and probably. I don't know what the exact requirements. I haven't spoken to Brian about the exact requirements for a fire pond. He said he would be happy to provide me with information. As like, probably not like there's no stream or water. Would be in a situation where we probably have to fill it.
And with respect to the kitchen, how far is the house off the road? I would expect that they would fight a fire right from the road.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or if there was a kitchen fire or something.
Oh, from the barn? Oh no, they could saddle right from the barn.
Okay, I guess I changed copies. The current application for the
Yes,
catered
that would be
kitchen.
no problem. They could easily. Yeah, so they get back. Brian gave me no requirements. His general thought is like, I have no issues. I want to hold something. Obviously, we'll have more requirements for the separate energy. The barn has more requirements from the fire marshal, which are operating to our with our architect.
The other piece of our fire condition was that permit state fire.
Yeah, no, we are currently making sure that we've already been in touch with people. So we held to, will be almost held to the same high standard, even if we wanted to make it a commercial kitchen. We don't. The fire support and it's self-contained at some level.
It's not-
Go ahead. I was gonna say, once you have a state fire marshal permit for the wedding.
Phil, any more questions?
Just, there's no plan to pave more than 18 feet.
Never, yeah, fire.
Requirement. In our land use ordinance, so we didn't impose anything.
Even though, limited people, still more people from outside of our house, which we are anytime.
I mean, to the dust aspect, I tried to create dust on the road. I mean, that more than 20 miles an hour. I tried. The dust is up. I don't know where it's coming up from because I tried to create it. That the road's not completed yet. Once it's completed, it still creates dust. There are ways to control dust. We could, not that I would want to treat it with sodium, but that is the way to treat it. At least commercially, they do. At some point, like I also would contend that, basically, it's half my life. There's a considerable amount of dust that's created by driving.
Any more questions, Ms. Fulci?
No.
Okay, I can't see
Carter is the only.
Lee Carker. I'd like to recognize you remotely.
Lee Carker, 285 St. George Road. We're basically neighbors of this project. And I have a couple of clarification questions, one about tonight's application, one about the wedding barn, and then a general comment for the planning board. My question about tonight's project is I had difficulty hearing Mr. Hendrick's presentation. So I'm wondering if I state what I think I heard, if you could confirm that. I believe I heard that the catering operation is going to happen at 305 St. George Road, the property that where his father used to live up on the road, that there'll be 4 employees. We're going to take a look at the septic system to make sure it's going to be adequate. Did I hear that right about the location? This is not happening at the barn.
No, this is happening at the house that's basically between the barn and the road.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Now, I have a question about the wedding barn. I don't know if it's permissible since you're looking at a different application here. One of the things my wife and I are concerned about is sound. And we wondered if there was any provision in the structure itself to try to deaden sound.
So I want to answer that in the town ordinance perspective, which is there's a general town ordinance effective 24/7, 365, 65 decibels at the property line. It's the noise ordinance for the town of South Thomaston, and we did make that clear, and I think condition, if not, it doesn't even really need to be a condition of the permit because it's an ordinance. So, but we talked about that. 65 decibels is more or less the sound of, maybe a little bit less than the sound of traffic.
No.
Okay, thank you.
So, go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
My comment is that it sounded to me like you're going to have a discussion a little bit later about notice requirements, and I'm very appreciative of that. When this project began, many of us neighbors and even abutters were completely caught off guard. The notices about the project were put up inside the town office during the COVID outbreak. So there was no way for us to see the notices. There was no public hearing. So we felt completely taken off guard. So I'm glad to see that you're at least taking a look at reviewing how you handle notices on these things. I believe a project of this size should have had a public hearing.
I think that the notices went out via the listserv as well. So I'll just address that. Or Herb, do you want to address it? I know you've thought a lot about this. I know.
Okay. Usually projects, there's been a lot of projects in the plant board quite a while. There's no town ordinance for notification. What has been done since this project was approved, we have redone our bylaws, and it has some provisions for notifications for public hearings. We will be addressing other notifications that have been brought to our attention from the select board and I guess, the townspeople. And we're going to consider all that. We're going to have probably we'll have to conduct a workshop because there are few other items to deal with the planning board bylaws as far as, who hires who and what rights the selectmen have versus the planning board and whose jurisdiction that is. So those discussions will be coming up probably in September.
Yeah.
Okay, those workshops are open to the public too.
What I'll add is that I believe that we were within our ordinance and within statute for how we consider and approve this. But on the flip side, I will say that there's always room to improve. I think we're all aware of that, and we're going to work on it. I will leave it at that. I mean, if you want to stay around, that's what we're going to talk about next, I think. Mr. Carker, it's appreciated, and thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Okay, I appreciate the fact that you folks are working on it, and for the fact that you're all volunteers and you're doing this on your own time. I appreciate that very much. So thank you.
Thank you for recognizing that. And I do want to say that I joined in 2019. Herb and I are the only ones that were left. And when I actually gave you and I joined at the same time. Catherine, we've had turnover on the board because of COVID. I'm on my 4th CEO. And from where we were to where we are now, we've administratively come a long way. But I know we've been somewhat impacted by turnover. Anna, who you can't see, is taking notes and doing a great job with minutes. So Irv and I have spent a lot of time and the whole board on the new bylaws, which if you want to go to sleep, go ahead and download and read our bylaws. But compared to the old ones, they're far, far better and will keep us in line with both our ordinance and statute. But I'll say what I said again, is that we can still improve, and we will.
Mr. Carr, I just want to let you know, before you and Mrs. Hilchey, questioned me about this wedding venue, we had already started working on our bylaws, and actually they were approved before I heard from either one of you as far as notifications and concerns. So like I said, we were on top of it, at least 6 months ago, looking at these different things. But we have to work within our constraints of the town ordinances, the things that were voted on at the town meeting, even in June. There's some things there that, I would think needed some correcting, but I'll get with the ordinance review committee and on those as well. But like I say, I just want to let you know there was no attempt to collusion or conceal anything from this board. And if there's certainly anybody has any kind of proof of it, I'd like to hear it. But I don't believe there was any. Okay. And like I say, you're welcome to come to our workshops, or when we discuss this, you can listen tonight.
Yeah. Is there any additional public?
Thanks for coming too.
Yes, thank you. Any more public comment this evening? Hearing none, I'm going to move to our next new agenda item, which is the topic of workshopping what I believe should be a new bylaws revision to our new bylaws. And if anybody wants to leave, feel free. You want to offend us, this is just going to be us talking about our working.
It was nice to meet you guys all. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you for your time.
So just to open this up, and I think we just heard from Ms. Hilchey and Mr. Parker on the concern that we've all heard, that, while we followed our rules can always be better. Recognize that last year when we started working on bylaws, the old bylaws were really inadequate. They didn't tell us really how to do anything as far as how to run this board. So I feel like we've come a long ways, but I think that we should go back to workshop to work on notice. And there's two parts of that notice. One is the notice that a permit's been filed. So whether that's letters to abutters, I came from a town where you had to post sort of a realty sign in your yard when there was change of use or building permit application. So there's different ways we can do that. I think we have to keep in mind that we have the lean town office, so got one day a week from a CEO and a couple of administrators that help us. So we have to keep in mind what we can do, because making rules that we can't follow is worse than no rules at all. But we do need to do that. So that's the first part of it. And then the second part is, so that would be like routine. I believe anytime there's certain types of applications, not every application, like LPI, like somebody wants to put in a snake, no, we're not going to put that out. If they're going to build, we have to talk about whether or not if they're going to build a garage or if they're going to do a commercial, where do we draw the line and how does notice get out there? The second part is how do we escalate as a planning board? What are the criteria for when we do a public hearing? Right now, the criteria for doing a public hearing is one of us, and we're all fairly inexperienced, except for her, been on for a long time, but like I said, a lot of turnover. Many of us have been on planning board before, except for Herb with some like other terms. We the grips as a team, a board here. What right now, like I said, the only way that we have a public hearing is if somebody raises a motion, a board member raises a motion to have a public hearing, then we vote on it, then we have a public hearing, which still needs to happen, but I think there needs to be criteria behind that. Like anytime it's and the right place to do that, all of that is a revision to the bylaws. That's my feeling. So is there any additional discussion on that?
I don't have any objection of, I'm sorry.
Gabe's talking, he probably couldn't hear
I'm
us.
sorry.
sorry, I've got my mask on here, but, I just like to say, I agree, and thank you for bringing it up. I think it should be.
You still can't hear you, Gabe, I'm sorry.
To,
You're gonna have to yell.
that's right, it's about as good as I can do. I'm kind of quiet.
That's all right.
But anyway, I think it should be a workshop to decide, and the only point that I was gonna raise is that there will be a limit to the type of notification we can require in our bylaws. And if that, we believe notifications should happen for things like building a garage that don't come before us necessarily, then that would have to be an ordinance change.
Yeah, I agree. So we can make a recommendation to the ORC, for example, like resolve to recommend to the ORC such and such.
Yes.
But we can't. Essentially for applications that Corey approves, that's not our business, right? So, but it may still be useful. We can talk about that. Herb, do you have anything to add?
Well, I was just, so you guys know, on July 15th, I did a Zoom meeting with the selectmen, and some of these issues were raised. So that's what's kind of led us here tonight. That's a little history on it. So I do have an email from John Spear. I don't know if everybody else received it or not. Just me and Ryan. It just came out like yesterday.
So we've got some, just to let you guys know, we have some input from John on what he would recommend. I haven't actually had time to read that. Herb.
Right. I looked, that's what I'm saying. I read it. I
looked.
looked at it. There's some questions there. They had in the July meeting, they also had some questions about, what jurisdiction we have versus the selectmen. And we can kind of just, I think tonight we could kind of like generally go over some of this stuff, but we probably ought to schedule maybe a workshop after everybody's had a chance to review some of this stuff and the bylaws as well. But well, I'm willing to continue for a while on any subject you'd like.
Yeah, no, just for everybody's context, I reached out to John yesterday on some other administrative stuff, and we talked about this a little bit on the phone, so we formalized some of that, copied Herb and I, but we can send that around. It'll be our job, but we certainly should take their input. And I agree with you, Herb. I don't want to do it tonight. We're not prepared to do it tonight. I think they'll probably want to go home sooner than later. So what I'd like to do is say, when could we ask the board, is there an evening in, say, first half of September, not September 16th, because that's our board meeting, but maybe like the Thursday before or something, or we could schedule a workshop on this topic.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I think where I am confused is the subject of notice. It's a legal terminology. I mean, we don't decide what notice is what the law says notice is. Unless I'm misunderstanding notice. Town is. Well, that wasn't very clear.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, what the deal is, we're not required right now to do any notice. We are governed under town ordinance. And what they'd have to have a town meeting to change the ordinance to make it a rule or law that we have to have public notice. This is kind of a workaround with the bylaws that we could put something in there, say basically for something that has larger square footage or, more things that are like other costs, maybe one, something, expensive project type thing, such as like the solar. We did it for the solar farm. We need to kind of put some numbers down. So if somebody comes in, that they know if they build something 10,000 square feet, that we have to have a notice and a public hearing, I would say a building. That's the kind of stuff we need to be looking at.
Yeah, I'm a lawyer and notice is notice.
Yes, to my understanding, I have
And
one.
this is where I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll tell you my layman's understanding. So there's a statute that says that the town has to have a land use ordinance. And we have to have, or at least we have to have a shoreline zoning ordinance. We can adopt and have adopted a land use ordinance. We've also adopted an ordinance that forms this board.
Yeah.
And that ordinance says that we will have rules, bylaws, that tell us how to run this board, right? How to administer the board. And background, I kind of went over already. The previous ones were from like the 80s. It was one page and it left a lot of
Their
questions.
bylaws were goofy, yeah.
Yeah, so we did between December and March was using kind of a mishmash of different town bylaws that we could like similar sized towns and stuff like that we could find just online. Irv and I worked together on a draft and then we workshopped from there where we are today.
Okay,
And
that's a lot of,
yeah, it was quite a bit. I mean, it's a lot of work for volunteers. It wasn't like a week of work. Catherine, do you?
Yeah, I'm not sure, okay. It's I'm really confused about what we're trying to decide. And to me, it's like, let's work with common sense as well. Some people have been upset because they were not aware of what was going on when they felt they were directly impacted.
right,
So now we're trying to decide what is worth notifying people. And when I say notifying, again, the definition might be legal or whatever. But I'm looking at the town website right now, and I see that the agendas are posted. So for the planning board, so that agenda lists which permits are coming to the board. And we don't know any sooner than the agenda what permit is going to be discussed. Now, there is the issue of timing. To me, the timing is the bigger problem.
time.
Because we get the material barely 3 days before we have to, look at it. So, the people, the neighbors, the butters and so forth can hardly know it sooner than we do. And,
Not everyone has a computer,
And
which is hard to believe.
I think by ordinance, we have to act on permits within 60 days? Or is it 30?
35, I think.
I'm in the more recent. I'll double check.
So
I've got the ordinance open.
what we basically set up is what you saw happen tonight, which is we hear from the applicant and then we're going to consider the application next.
yes.
We did that with the Hendricks too, by the way, whether or not we did it in a way where everybody could be aware. I mean, we did it within our rules and within statute, but can we do it better? Maybe, you know?
And I
Basically, we have 3 days that we get the application. We hold a meeting usually, then we usually decide whether we're going to do any notice, what requirements we're going to make, so forth. And then we usually wait a month till the next month. That gives adequate time to get the notifications out if we decide to do them. And that's kind of what we've been doing since the March bylaws were passed. I've written several notification letters myself. We don't have a set policy for somebody to even do that.
The applicant, again, there are many information systems available now, can easily go to the maps and the tax list and know who the owners of the abutting lots are. And, we can design a standard form, and they have to fill the name and,
Easy.
the name and mail it. And that has to be part of their application, that these letters were mailed.
Correct, but
One thing
Go ahead.
I would raise as a hurdle to this is that I'm not sure that our bylaws can tell applicants what to do at all. I think the bylaws might only be able to tell us what to do.
Yes, that's a
So
good
what we're
point.
actually talking about is when does the planning board mobilize its resources to notify people? And when the planning board mobilizes resources
And
to
that's-
schedule a public hearing versus your realty sign thing or something else like that, which would be very helpful in
But it would have-
clarifying when people were doing that, but that would have to be an ordinance change.
Yes.
So public hearing is a big one. I mean, So,
That's a different issue.
yeah, to your point though, Gabe, the bylaws need to tell us how to operate, in my view.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna only consider applications of a certain class, and we require them to have certified letters to the abutters, that's telling us what we're gonna consider a complete application. I don't know, but then on public, so that's the first part, notice. Notice in the sense of notice to the abutters or notice to the town or whatever. The second part is what escalates to a public hearing, which is definitely administrative rule stuff. Right now, the only rule is that if somebody makes a motion, we have a public hearing, and then seconds it, we say, we all vote to have one, then we will have a public hearing, but that didn't, so in the example of Mr. Hendricks, that didn't happen, again, because that didn't happen.
I think, again, we might be complicating things a little too much. Because from what I understood from listening to the select board, public hearing is also a very special type of meeting. When the public is allowed to attend any meeting and we can make room for public comments at every permit application. And often having those public comments is all that is needed.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, I think that most applications will not raise to the level of public hearing. I hope that it doesn't
Oh,
because,
that'd be terrible, yeah.
yeah, I mean, that would be impossible.
but if it's a greater than 10,000 commercial or an industrial use or something, then yeah, I think those are the sorts of things. And those are actually categories in our ordinance, by the way.
Yeah.
That would make sense to trigger. I don't want to invent new things. I just want rules that tell us how to, or at least how to decide.
So we have a trail that identifies why we have done what we have done,
And we can be
and
consistent.
we know what to do, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that would not remove the ability of any board, in my opinion, we should not remove the ability of any board member to make a motion to the public hearing. So it doesn't need to meet the criteria to have a. If it meets the criteria, we should probably definitely have one. But if there was something else, anybody could still raise a motion that we should have a public hearing. We can discuss it. And that could be as simple as it is. One thing, I appreciate your lawyer, I didn't know that. That's one thing I talked to Mr. Spear about, Chairman Spear.
I keep it secret most of the time.
But we've not had a lot of access to legal. We've never talked to a lawyer as this board in the last 2 years, but I think that for certain things, we should get some counsel. And I've talked to other planning board members from other towns that I know, and they've all been aghast that we don't have counsel.
On the selfish committee too.
Ryan?
We do have counsel, and Mr. Spears made it clear to me by the way, we have two mechanisms, and we're gonna figure out how to do that. The MMA, which we are a member of, and we as board members can get credentials, and log in and ask questions. We need to figure out how to do that. And then there's the town attorney, which is another level of legal advice that we probably need a way to access that too on certain occasions, and that might need to go through the select board. So we're not working this stuff out.
Well, as we get bigger and more productive as a community, we probably need,
I mean, I wouldn't do
because I don't
business.
do real estate in Maine, never did. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I've been executive with a lot of companies. I've been on other boards. I've never operated at a level like this without access to counsel. So, be that what it may, that's another, like when we workshop it, we should workshop it. We shouldn't ask the lawyer to come up with this. But for example, I think we should run it by the lawyer before we enact new bylaws.
We do that for our association for where I live.
Yeah.
We change stuff. We run up by him and he goes, you can do that or you can't.
And this falls into the category of we're a small town, small budget, and not a lot of
Absolutely.
administrative resources. So whatever we decide we're gonna do has to be part,
Yeah.
doable.
I agree.
Irv, anything from you?
Just quickly, I know you guys probably won't go home, but we can always set conditions on projects. We just got to make sure we have equity from person to person. And just to give you a quick background, there's been many businesses in South Thomaston that have been approved without notifications or, public hearings. The Wilson landscaping business, Kaznaki with his business down on 73, the brewery on Waterman's Beach. So I could probably think of a few more, but this Benner, his business, the Tree Man, was approved without notifications. So that's more been the norm than not me. That's mostly been done without notifications than with notifications. The only notification that I can recall is on the junkyard on Westbrook Street. There was a notification about a well to notify the neighbors about their wells, about the junkyard. And I don't think that was ever done either. That was brought up in a meeting. But if there's anything, like I say, everything can be changed, everything can be modified. And I think we need to probably, set a workshop and get our ideas together and then discuss it, along with a few other items that the selectmen would like us to discuss.
So what I'd like to propose, and anybody else can weigh in here, could we workshop tonight? Are you guys available?
Tonight?
No, the 9th of September. One Thursday before our next regular.
That could be very bad for me. They might have a big work deadline the next day.
What about,
I'm coming to the 16th, but you don't need me.
oh, we need everybody. You're out till the 16th?
Till
How
the
about the
15th.
3rd? How about the 23rd, the Thursday after?
That's fine.
Okay with you, Irv?
I haven't set my schedule yet, but yeah, what we can do is we can set a date, and then if people go home and they finally have conflicts, we can maybe pick something else. As long as we have 7 days to put it on the give public notice on the in the town website. Well, actually, we only need 2 days, but we try to do 7 days for a meeting. So if anybody from the public likes to come. So that would be the only restriction. So if you want to set a date tonight, that's, I think we could try it, then we can always adjust it.
So I'll move to set a workshop 9/23 at 6 PM. Anybody second?
Second.
Dave seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. Catherine?
A,
Dave? Aye. Karen?
Nope.
No? Doesn't work?
It works. Yeah.
So
I'm sorry,
so
yes.
the vote is yes. Ryan is yes. Irv?
Yes?
All right, it's set. So with that, I'm going to close that agenda item.
should we do a little homework, like take links at other towns, if they have anything regarding hearings or whatever?
Yeah, why don't Irv, you and I, since now we're going to have our next regular meeting ahead of the workshop, if we could ask everybody to do a little homework. Irv, I can work with you if there's something, and maybe bring some examples. Like I said, if you guys can find it, we can share that at the next regular meeting, and then we'll go to our workshop reasonably prepared.
Yes.
I don't have any, but do I have anybody's email? I can get it to you. Okay.
Oh, yeah, we'll do it.
Yes, there is actually something I wanted to bring up as well, which was the, freedom of information and all these things. And something that happened during the Conservation Commission initiation was a discussion of emails not circulating, not emailing one another. But we can email, for instance, the chairperson, have one-way communication is essentially. So if we find a document that's relevant to what we're going to discuss, maybe we can have Irv centralize those and then pass them on and, whatever, but not comment them or give our opinion, because that constitutes a meeting.
Yeah, we can't deliberate
Yes.
outside.
We don't do that. We that's not been our practice since I know I've been on the board and Ryan either. We don't discuss things outside of a public meeting.
When I talk
But we can bring it to the public meeting and discuss it. It can be distributed, but we can't, give our opinions. We need to be very careful about that. But other than that, yes, that's a good idea to, get the stuff distributed. You send it to me and then I can distribute it to you. I'll say I received this or whatever, and you can look at it, and then, but we can't do any discussions outside of a public forum. Okay, or public meeting. All right, and that is in our bylaws as well.
Action items for the next meeting. We just set one, I think, which is to work on the notice public hearing stuff ahead of our workshop. Obviously, if there's any new business, is there anything that you feel needs to be on the next meeting agenda that is not part of the regular standing agenda?
Do you think we'll be ready to do the performance standard on these two projects? Or do we need, I guess they can see what they come up with and bring into us, and then we can decide whether or not to do the performance standards.
I hope we gave them
All
all
the
the
questions
advice
you
they
can
need tonight.
You got a lot.
I can tell you that.
I'm gonna recognize Miss Elchie one more time because she had her hand up and it's not too terribly late yet.
I'll be quick. So just so you know, some of the agendas previously were posted online. They appear to be now, and access to the previous Zoom meetings was not available online. They were obtained by request, but they previously were not available online. One thing that would be really helpful, and I see it's been upgraded in this agenda, is what the application actually is, instead of just saying, Hendrick's application, that
Yeah,
will
and
tell you what it is. So
And the address, because that would,
I was gonna say that, Anna, going forward, address, if there is one, sometimes there isn't, or map and lot number, or both.
That would be done by the code enforcement officer to make that
This,
the application.
what we did is we lost all of our old board officers during COVID, and we didn't run a very tight ship before that, by the way. And we had a new CEO during COVID, who then left during COVID, and then we had an interim one. Administratively, we've been a little bit challenging, but we're getting better.
There also doesn't appear to be a way to sign up for the listserv online. You have to come into the town office and sign up.
You can definitely, I can talk to Terry about that, and Nick, you can definitely email Terry and she'll get you on it.
No, I'm on it now, but I'll just email Carrie.
Yeah.
Because there is no way online.
You can put an online message requesting. There's a contact form right there under contact us. And then we're actively working on a button to join the listserv, but it's technologically challenging. So we're working on it.
So, other than the notice and what we know is going to be business, no additional action items or agenda items for next meeting. With that, I'm going to adjourn 7:36. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you for joining, public, and have a good month. Sir.